It's okay to slow down this winter. We are constantly on the go nowadays to where it feels like we don't have permission, even from ourselves, to rest. So I'm here to give it to you. It's time to take a break. So grab a snack, sit down, and get comfy while I explain to you all the ways that you can embrace slower living this winter season. So, winter is my least favorite season. In fact, I used to hate it. I hated the cold, I hated the holidays, and I hated feeling like my life was on pause. But actually, just a year ago, I had an epiphany. I was able to ask myself, what's the harm in slowing down? And I realized the answer was, there is no harm in slowing down. So from then on, I vowed to try and romanticize winter so I could get through it without being absolutely fucking miserable like in years past. And the first step in that process wasn't buying cozy sweaters or playing in the snow. It was actually me having to release my need for control. You see, I tend to feel the need to try and control everything because I grew up in an environment where everything was very out of my control. So instead of being so particular about how everything needs to be in my life, I realized that I needed to release some of that control and let the season guide me. This is especially important given that I have seasonal depression. I didn't even realize it and talk to my psychiatrist about it until this year, but it's something that has been affecting me for years now. I never realized before why I get so tired that I can barely function in the wintertime. I just viewed it as a personal failing of mine and need to be more disciplined. And that's the problem with those of us who are super into productivity and self-improvement is often we can view something completely out of our control as a personal failing. Convinced we're stuck in a lazy girl era when in reality, it's depression. Which I intend to make a video about in the future actually, so subscribe if you're interested in that. But I finally noticed this pattern thanks to Facebook memories actually. I finally noticed that around the same time every year I complain about not being able to get out of bed and feeling tired all the time. This led to the realization that it was seasonal depression, which led to me realizing that something really needed to change in my routines and most importantly in my mindset. Because I can't strong arm my way out of depression. So instead, I need to give myself space to function differently and to accommodate the need for rest into my routines. Which leads me to today's suggestions on how to live a slower and more intentional life this winter season. The first thing is actually really simple, but it's kind of hard to give ourselves permission to do sometimes. And this is simply to let yourself rest more in the wintertime. It's colder, we're getting less vitamin D in our systems, the days are darker, it's natural that we're going to feel more tired during this time. An easy thing that we can do to slow down is to allow ourselves the occasional moment of rest when our body is calling for it. But to do this, we need to actually listen to what our body is telling us instead of ignoring it in favor of accomplishing all of our tasks. Try to regularly practice asking yourself what you need in this specific moment. Take a minute to close your eyes, breathe deeply for a moment, and really sit in the awareness of your body. What is it asking for? Is it rest? Is it food? Is it movement? It can actually be more abstract based on your mental needs as well. So is it communication? Is it a clean space? Is it journaling? Is it a good cry session? What are you truly wanting in this present moment? Practicing this regularly can help us figure out the moments where we need to work on our tasks or the moments where we need to rest. And rest doesn't need to mean sleeping. It could just be a simple nap, or it could just be sitting down and letting yourself be for a while. It could be meditating, or it could be taking a break from your phone, which leads us to our next tip. This one can be hard to do as well, but for different reasons. And that is spending time away from our phones. Our phones are basically a global comparison device. We see how everyone else is living and we feel the need to keep going and catch up in order to meet other people's approval. We need to take a step back and reevaluate what is really important to us. Do you truly want to be working nonstop to the point of burnout? Or would you really like to try and live a more balanced lifestyle? I know balance seems like a tough ask for many of us in the modern age, but there are ways to make it possible. And one way is by finding time away from your devices. We unknowingly waste so much time on our phones, and for what? To fry our dopamine receptors and get lost in the comparison trap? The fact is that most of us do not have a healthy relationship with our devices. We pull it out whenever there's an inkling of boredom so we can quell that urge and quiet any thoughts that may come up. But what if you sat with that boredom, sat with that silence? How would it feel? If stressed out or uncomfortable is your answer, I understand. We've become so used to constant stimulation that going without it almost seems impossible. But it is possible, and it will greatly improve your life by doing so. I personally feel like the best way to do this is to turn that fucker off. Turn it off, put it in airplane mode, stow it away in another room. Keep the temptation as far away as possible from you. But what do you do now that it's off? That's the fun part. You can do anything. But if you're feeling a little lost, I have some suggestions for you. The first one is really fun for me, and that is hobbies, doing something that you love. Aren't sure what you love? Brainstorm. Last year, I made a self-care menu that I will show on screen. This included all the habits and hobbies that I could do that I felt would enrich my life. You can make a hobby list and you could put whatever you want on there. As you can see, I have shit like Play-Doh and Legos on mine. And that's actually because I literally made a whole entire hobby cabinet of things to do that was inspired by my stays in the psych ward. Listen, while I was in the hospital, it was actually really nice to have an assortment of different calm hobbies to do at my fingertips just for any time of the day. So I turned an old computer cabinet into a hobby cabinet with the aforementioned Play-Doh and Legos, and also beading supplies and books and stickers and pens and fidgets and puzzles. Anything that I could do to take my mind off of stressful situations or just to give myself something fun to do to pass the time. I also have a dining table that I always keep clear for my sewing machine and other crafty things. So that's something you can do too, is create a dedicated space in your home for certain hobbies. But you don't have to do this. You can just partake in a hobby somewhere comfy that you'll enjoy doing it. So some ideas of things for you to do are you can read, you can do some sort of crafting, you could do painting. I do actually want to make a full video of hobby ideas and fun things that you can try, and so subscribe if you're interested in that as well. So that's one thing that you can do that's really engaging, is a hobby. That way your mind is taken off of the urge to check social media, and you're going to get dopamine without spiking it and then causing a huge crash. Another thing you can do to slow down during the winter is just to take a mindful moment. And in my mind, a mindful moment can mean a few different things. The first mindful moment that you can take is literally just sitting with yourself, with no phones, no music, no podcast, no YouTube video, no anything. Just silence and your thoughts. Because I think we've lost the ability to just let ourselves think without outside stimulation. And I also think we should just let ourselves be bored more often. It gives us an opportunity to think and to make new ideas. So get out a notebook, doodle, write aimlessly. Just allow your thoughts to wander and see what happens. And another mindful moment that you can take is just by meditating. Now, I don't want to lose you by suggesting this, so stick with me here. It doesn't have to be some 30 minutes of you crossing your legs and chanting. It can just be a simple 5 to 10 minutes where you sit down and calm your thoughts regularly, or just any moment where you need an extra bit of calm. Something that I personally like to do to help me meditate is to play rain sounds or ocean sounds or something like those sound baths with those crystal sound bowls, just so I have something to focus on besides my own thoughts. Then I like to focus on my breathing and try to quiet my mind. And if I'm having a particularly hard time with that, I like to tell myself internally, just like, breathe in, breathe out. So that way I'm just focusing on one specific thing. Something else I'll do when I'm meditating and listening to those ambient sounds, if it's really hard to quiet my thoughts, is to just sit there and visualize myself in that relaxing environment, like listening to the rain or the ocean. And that way I'm visualizing something and focusing on that. There's also guided meditations if you think that that might be your thing. And there's different types of meditations that you can do, like body scans or even like walking meditations, if that is something that is easier for you. I like to generally do it for about like 15 minutes at a time, and I always feel a lot better after doing so, but you have full permission to just practice it for a few minutes at a time. And as time goes on, your tolerance and your discipline may grow, and you can try to do it for even longer. So one last mindfulness moment that I really like is yoga. I think that yoga is a great compromise for people who can't meditate, because you're still taking that moment to like still your body and your mind, but there are like positions and breathing to focus on, so that way it's easier to be in the present moment and not in your head. And this is actually a super accessible way to have a mindful moment, because there are YouTube videos for like all different kinds of yoga. There's yoga for back pain, there's trauma-informed yoga, there's yoga for beginners, like anything like that. And all you have to do is clear a space on the floor, throw on a video, and get started. And I do want to emphasize how beginner friendly a lot of these videos are, so you don't have to stress out over doing like super complicated positions. But if you want a more intensive routine, you can do that. And if you want a more gentle routine, you can absolutely find that too. And a fair warning, as someone with a cat, is that your pet may absolutely want to join in the yoga routine with you, but don't let it throw you off. It's okay if you get distracted by something here or there. It doesn't mean that you're failing at doing the yoga. And I lied last time when I said that yoga was the last mindfulness moment. I actually have one more for you, and that is planning. I fully understand that some of us are more doers than we are planners, but planning has its benefits. In this instance, you're going to plan to gain clarity on what is most important to you. What does your ideal day look like? What does your ideal life look like? Thinking more broadly can help us figure out what we want in the day-to-day, and you can actually check out my last video on being delusional in 2025 if you need more help on figuring out what your dreams are and dreaming big. But back to the day-to-day. What are the habits that you want to implement each day? Do you want to read more, work on a side business, start a sport, do more self-care? Brainstorm all the things that you'd like to do in your ideal day and start from there. So then you want to figure out when you have free time in your day and slot in your most wanted habits in those spots. If you like visual representations, then something like Google Calendar is so helpful for this, and it's something that I use personally. But you can also just do this on a piece of paper. And you don't have to furiously time block every moment of your day and follow it to a T. You can just input the habits and use it as a general guideline. Remember, we're taking it slow and we aren't overdosing on productivity. But just take a moment to figure out what the most fulfilling day looks like for you. Not what other people want your day to be and not what you think you should do. And try to follow that for a while and see how it feels. Some tips for this planning process are, first of all, not to overload yourself with planning productive habits or tasks. Because in reality, overindulging in the productivity side of things is really counterproductive, because then we end up burning out and we aren't able to do anything at all. There is no one out there who can pour from an empty cup, so remember to balance out your productive and your restful habits. Another tip is to stop multitasking. Multitasking is proven to be ineffective because you're not actually doing two things at once. Your brain is like switching from one task to the other really fast. And so there's no reason to do it. It's much better to just take things one thing at a time. You can habit stack, but don't multitask. And habit stacking is taking a habit that you already do and adding a new one in addition to it. For example, say you want to start doing skincare. You are likely already doing something like brushing your teeth in the morning, so then you can go ahead and add skincare on top of that. That way, every day when you brush your teeth, you remember that skincare comes right afterwards. Or say you want to do something like you want to start stretching. You can say that when you are brewing your morning coffee, you will do a few minutes of stretches. We're just adding things to your already existing routine to make the transition to new habits easier for you. And something we can do after we have planned our days is to set boundaries. This allows us to honor the commitments that we have made to ourselves and not to spread ourselves too thin. It is okay to say no to things that will drain you or things that will take too much of your time. You may not feel like it is because we are often programmed to be people pleasers, but once you do, your quality of life will drastically improve when you stop treating yourself like a last priority. You also need to set boundaries with yourself. Boundaries to keep yourself from working past when you said you would. Boundaries to uphold the commitments you have made. Boundaries are a crucial step of gaining control of our lives and keeping things in order. And since boundaries most often include other people, that is the perfect transition to the next habit that you can implement this winter. And that is finding time to connect with others. A perfect way to spend more time off of our phones and engaged in healthier habits is to spend time with other people. Make plans with someone and make a commitment to keep your phone put away. Maybe unless it's to do something like take pictures or videos, and just have a good time with the people around you. I also understand that some of us are lacking in real-life connections and have online friends, and that's okay too. Plan voice chats together, plan game nights together. You can still be present with the people that you love even if you need to be online to do it. And if you feel like you don't really have many connections that you can nurture in your life, nurture that connection with yourself. Take yourself on dates, spend nights off your phone doing your favorite things, indulge in self-love. You are the most important person in your life, so please treat yourself like it. And since you are the most important person in your life, a crucial way to slow down and to take care of yourself this winter is to practice self-care. It is so important to take care of ourselves and to do things for the benefit of our body and our mind. And this doesn't mean that you need to go out and spend money on face masks and bubble baths. It just means that you need to nurture yourself in the ways that benefit you. And if taking a bubble bath is relaxing to you, then absolutely do it. But if it makes you bored or uncomfortable, you don't need to force yourself to do it just because it's a common self-care activity. If taking a shower is more calming and cleansing to you, then that can absolutely be a part of your self-care routine. Just do the things you want to do. This can be journaling, reading, skincare, bubble baths, meditating, spending time outside, dancing, singing, cooking, anything that really fills your cup and just makes you feel better by the end of it. Just try and schedule time into your week, or better yet, into each day for specified self-care time. Because it is so easy to let this practice fall to the wayside when we get busy or stressed, and that is exactly how we fall into the burnout trap. We have to again set that boundary and keep that commitment to ourselves alive even when it's not as easy. You will be so grateful that you have continually poured into yourself and taken care of yourself so that you're no longer pouring from an empty cup. And speaking of gratefulness, that brings us to our next super important thing to get down this winter: gratitude. When you consistently practice gratitude, it's going to become so much easier to continually look on the bright side of things and stay motivated even when things get tough. And I highly encourage you to have a dedicated space for your gratitude practice. This can be as fancy or as simple as you want it to be. Keep it in your notes app, keep it in a fancy journal, keep it in a basic spiral bound notebook, or put it into something like your Notion. Just add it to your routine in whatever way is most seamless so it doesn't become a chore to upkeep. And practicing gratitude is really fucking simple. One easy way to do it is just to list like 1 to 5 things that you're grateful for each day. And some people stop there, but I personally encourage you to also add a reason why you are grateful for those things. This is because you can add context to why you're grateful and really sit in that feeling, and also have something more meaningful to look at in the future. And this can be one sentence explaining why you're grateful for it, or like a whole paragraph. It really doesn't matter. So you can say something like, I'm grateful for my morning coffee because it wakes me up and it's a nice little treat. Or you can get more advanced and say things like, I'm so grateful for this person because of this reason and that reason, and today we were hanging out and they gave me the best advice, da 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 da, just whatever you want to say. It's whatever works for you and just really puts you in the headspace of feeling grateful for something. And this really is proven to help boost your mood, so there's no reason not to incorporate it into your daily routine for just a few minutes at a time. And those are all of the tips that I have for you for living a slower and more intentional life this winter. I hope that this helped anyone feeling called to slow down, and I especially hope that it helps anybody out there like me who deals with seasonal depression and is trying to fight the natural slowing down of our bodies during this time. Please take care of yourselves this winter, all the way into spring and to summer. These are tips that can be applied during any time of the year. I just felt called to make this video because of my specific situation right now. So thank you so much. My name is Bunny, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Mwah!